Good bite. We're out here early spring, finally April. Water's warming up a little bit. Had a lot of weather the last few days though, coming off a big cold front. Hasn't seemed to have affected the bite too much, but you know, we're pitching jigs nice and shallow, semi-shallow, and targeting these big pre-spawn walleyes. And getting a few. So I've been out here a few minutes and picked up a limit if a guy was going to keep a few pretty quick, but I don't want to get these big females. I want to get them back in. This one's got some warts and stuff on it, but another nice, healthy, beautiful, you know, Lake Francis case, beautiful walleye. Didn't get her on back. Another bass. Even the bass didn't bite super hard. But they fight pretty hard. It's a nice smallmouth out here. Great place to do some smallie fishing. That's a big one. You know, focused on rocks, so not surprising they were getting some big smallies in there. So it's a nice, that's probably a 3.5 pounder at least, so fun to catch. Early in the season, spring, a lot of options. There's just a lot of things going on in these systems right now. You know, and the key is looking for that right temperature, right? A little warmer water is going to hold some bait. Definitely going to have you some active fish. You'll find them in cooler water and stuff, but I always look for some of that hottest water I can find, you know, the warmest water I can find. And this day is, you know, it's 43, which is, you know, a couple degrees warmer than a lot of other spots. And that's because I'm in the back of a bay where I have a feeder creek coming in and we just got a bunch of rain and a little bit of snow. So that is certainly helping, you know, warm that water up, as long as it doesn't get too dirty. We got pretty good clarity here. I can, you know, almost see my prop. And I'm working some rocks, some structure, and I can see these fish up there on the side scan and the 360 and the live. There's some smallmouth. Now, don't get pretty deceiving when you get in some of these bays, is that you get way back in there in the mud, and you'll mark a ton of fish, you know, and your first thought is they're drum, they're carp, what have you. It's not always the case. I made a couple casts right off the bat, and I saw some fish even hitting the surface, so there were some bass back there. And right off the bat, I caught a 17-inch walleye. So there's walleyes mixed in. Don't get discouraged if, you know, lift your head up. Don't stare at your scope the whole time. And just look out there. If you're in like 7 foot or less, you're going to, you know, you can see what's going on out there. You can see some of those fish especially with the clear water we got today. Semi-clear. I like it kind of that cloudy type, you know. I don't want to see my prop, but I want to see my cavitation plate type where water clarity I think is about perfect. But if it gets too muddy and if it's cold, I'm going to move out, or at least get to the edge of that mud line. That's probably where those active fish are at. Smallie. We got bass. I'm catching a lot of these lately. Lewis and Clark and Francis Case. think we're on the smallies. Oh, that's walleye. Sitting up there in them rocks. That's a good one. Another beautiful Francis case walleye. I get a measure on him. Might be a good 18.5, 19 incher. So these fish are definitely pre-spawn. Some might even be kind of getting into the spawn. It's middle of the day and we're catching these females up in, 7 foot and less of water. So the boat's in like 15, but it drops off pretty quick. But this time of year, like I said, it can be tricky. You're going to find fish, at a place like this at, like Francis Case, even Lewis Clark. I know there are fish everywhere, and it's pay attention to where they're at and what you're seeing. But they're not all biting. So just keep moving around until you find that pod of fish that, is activated, and then maybe go back to some of those you saw earlier. You're going to see some suspended. You're going to see a lot on the bottom. I'm kind of focused on the bottom ones right now as I'm jigging versus trolling. And I've seen a few on the live scope, but I don't necessarily need to watch them on here. I just need to find them and then make a nice little cast in that area. And with the water clarity, I've caught a couple just right at the boat. So, but the bites are light. So the key is slow. So just 100 times, it's slow. You can't go too slow. And a lot of times as you just lift that rod up, you'll feel a little bit of weight on it. You may need to let them have it, let them suck on it for a second, and then set the hook. Right now, they're picking it up and just swimming. They're not snapping it, but I'm watching the line basically move. And if they're swimming with it that much, for the most part, they got it in their mouth. The last one I caught, that one bit it. She thumped it pretty good. As the day warms up and the sun gets higher, this water starts to warm up throughout the day, that bite can definitely get a little bit more aggressive. Oh. We just switched it back up to a different color jig. Boom. First cast. Got another nice female. And that thing absolutely smoked that bait. Perfect slot, looks like, but I couldn't reel in fast enough to catch up to it. It was swimming at the boat so fast. So that actually looks like a female, could be a fat male. Some of these bellies on some of these males and cleaned them, it's just been fat. They're just a really healthy fish out here this year. So that one smoked it and swam at the boat as about as fast as you could. So I'll put a little tape on him and throw him back. All right, 19 incher, just a little 2.5 pounder. Yo, get away, little girl. So we are doing something just a little bit different today than outside the norm. Just a 1/4 ounce short shank jig. I run it at an 8-pound fluorocarbon leader. I typically run 10. And I actually put mono on this rod, which I never do. But if you're gonna do it, early spring's the time to help slow that bait down. I don't know if it's really slowing it down as I'm watching it though, and I threw my typical smackdown braid out there and it looked like the same fall rate. But I have a fluorocarbon leader on here too. I just have a smaller leader. And I missed a couple on my other jig a second ago. So I went back to this and I put an 8-pound fluorocarbon leader on it. And first cast, bam, another 19 incher. So a little more finessey. I don't know. Sometimes you just got to mess around with, different things and see what they want. And then the next day could be completely different. But a little color, a little chartreuse is always good. The other jig I was running was silver and I had 2 bites and missed them both. Real light, so they weren't getting it as big. It's the same 1/4 ounce, but a little bit bigger jig. So this one here that I poured myself a little smaller profile. Could be what it is. Could just be lucky. Who knows? That one was a bite. That guy popped her pretty good. Oh, nice female. That's what we like to call those little slack liners, where you're watching your line You can feel it just go. All right, 17-inch, 18-inch female. Another bass. And that smallie. I haven't really caught any smallies yet. They're all pretty nice size, so just bonuses. Those are fun. Seen a couple of them. Nice little 17-inch male, probably. Oh, seen a couple of them up there cruising right up on that little tiny point that came out. Threw it up there, and we got one. So. Didn't quite get this one on camera. I didn't hit the button, but got a good, 4-pounder here. They do live here. Let's let this big girl go. That is another over. Way over. All right, guys. So it's getting about time to wrap this day up. What's a good one to do her on? Another one. Might be just under 20, we'll see. Another nice big female. So everybody thanks Jerry and Berlin, the upper part of Francis Case in the spring. And it is phenomenal fishing up there, and it's great. I spend most of my time up there. But when you get on the lower end, down here at the Platte and south into Peach Creek, we tend to get a lot more of these bigger fish. So that's a 20 and a half. This weighs a little over 3 pounds. So another beautiful female. I think that's going to be it for the day. We're going to let her go. Put this baby on the trailer and call her good. So, sorry about the lighting here. It got cloudy, and you're your own cameraman. You can't always turn things into the sun right. So, moral of the story today is go fishing, obviously, but look for those creeks that are feeding into these reservoirs, or even on your lakes, especially early in spring. Those are always going to produce some fish, especially if you just had some rain or some fresh water coming in. But early spring, that's going to be your warmer water. And anywhere on these large reservoirs that you have coves, they're usually fed by a little feeder creek or what have you. Nonetheless, you're going to get a lot of that runoff down there from some of the rain we just had. Water clarity is crucial. It's clean, so that's important, and it's a little bit warmer than out on the main channel. Bringing these fish into the back of these bays, holding some bait. And today we're just focused on these rocky shorelines and gravel. So absolute perfect, spawning habitat for these fish. So, and that's where they're at. So thank you for following along, and it's another day pitching jigs for shallow water walleyes on lake.